Well, let's get straight into it with my next guest. Joining me now is Center of the American Experiment president and author of the Powerline blog, John Hinderaker. John, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Always a pleasure to have you on the U.S. Report. So much news to cover. I want to talk about this big story that's come out of the U.S. where the former leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, which sounds like a real white supremacist name to me, was sentenced to 22 years in prison for his role in the January 6th riots, even though he wasn't even there. John, you're a lawyer. Was this a bit too tough of a sentence, or does he deserve everything he's got coming to him?
James, it's really unbelievable. He was charged with and convicted of seditious conspiracy, which is a conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States. And the maximum penalty for seditious conspiracy is 20 years. But this guy got 22 years because the judge enhanced the sentence because Tarrio supposedly was engaged in terrorism. So he's convicted now of a combination of conspiring to overthrow the government of the United States and being a terrorist for events that took place while he was in Baltimore. I mean, James, we are looking here at complete insanity. Now, the January 6th protests, I mean, some of these people rioted. Some of these people did things that warranted criminal prosecution, malicious destruction of property, breaking and entering, whatever. But the reaction has been completely over the top. And when you talk about trying to overthrow the government of the United States, this is madness. Not a single person arrested on January 6, 2017 was in possession of a firearm. Not one. So, this is not much of a seditious conspiracy.
Well, and the thing is, John, we talk on this show an awful lot about how there seems to be two standards of justice here. And, if you go and you attack a government building from the right, it's sedition. And if you do it from the left, bless, you're just, standing up for social justice. Because Denver's city council, I want to ask you about this, they've unanimously approved a $4.7 million settlement to over 300 Black Lives Matter protesters who were arrested by the Denver police. So these guys are actually going to get a check cut. How does this work?
James, this is a real scandal. I'll give you another example. Yeah, tens of millions of dollars are now being paid to Black Lives Matter protesters who properly got arrested for committing actual crimes. I'll give you another example, James. In my home state of Minnesota, a guy named Montez Lee is an arsonist. He's participating in one of these Black Lives Matter riots. He sets a building on fire. It kills a man, a father of 5, okay? That is felony first-degree murder. He doesn't get charged with first-degree murder. He only gets charged with 1 count of arson. The presumptive sentence for that is 20 years, but the United States attorney recommends cutting that in half and only sentencing him to 2 years because he committed his murder in the course of a Black Lives Matter riot, which the Democratic Party approves of. So this murderer was sentenced to only 10 years, getting credit for the fact that his murder was committed in the course of a Black Lives Matter riot. And then we have the Proud Boys guy, 22 years, nobody was murdered, and he was in a different city at the time.
And I was reading, John, on your Powerline blog, I think, about another case from your hometown where there was a local radical activist who had, during the protests, been posting about how you've got to defund the police and, all of this stuff and eliminate cops and free everybody from jail and all the lunatic, radical Marxist stuff. And then this person was set upon by thugs and attacked and has now been taken out to social media saying, hey, we've got to talk tough against crime. We've got to stand up against crime. We've got to support our police. Are we seeing more and more cases of these radicals getting mugged by reality here and winding up saying, maybe the cops actually, John, they kind of do perform a useful purpose here?
James, this woman is a vice chairman of the Democratic Party in the state of Minnesota. And she on social media was saying, we are going to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department, which is where she lives. Well, that was her position until Tuesday when she got carjacked, tragically, in front of her 5 children. 4 armed thugs set upon her, beat her up, cut her seriously in the face, shoved her down. She got a broken leg. They carjacked her. They were all armed. And that's terrible, right? But now she's back on social media saying, we got to punish these criminals. We got to put them behind bars. No more taking it easy on crime. And the old saying back in the 1980s, James, was a neoliberal is a liberal, or I'm sorry, a neoconservative is a liberal who's been mugged. And, this is a classic example of that.
Well, we were talking a little earlier on the show about Eric Adams in New York, running the whole sanctuary city line, and then being like, oh no, this is going to wind up ruining New York City. This is happening over and over again. It's tragic what happened to that woman, but boy, you'd wish that some of these people would come to their senses before some terrible thing happened to them. Now, John, you're a lawyer, and I want to ask you about this case here that's been filed in Colorado to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. They're saying that he's ineligible to run because of some rarely used clause in the U.S. Constitution aimed at candidates who have supported an insurrection. I don't even remember this clause when I did civics and history and politics. Is this legit, or is this just another sort of scam by the left here to stop Donald Trump from running by any means necessary?
James, it's the latter. This is utter madness. What we're talking about here, and this, by the way, is a theory that has now gained favor across the Democratic Party. A lot of them are trying to do it in multiple states. We're talking about Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which is one of the amendments passed after the Civil War. And what this particular section says is that if you have been an officer or a congressman in the U.S. government and you participate in an insurrection or rebellion, you are no longer eligible to serve as an officer of the U.S. government. It was aimed, obviously, at Confederates, who had previously been, for example, congressmen, and there were a number of those. Well, the idea that this applies to Donald Trump is completely insane. There is actually a federal statute that provides criminal penalties for participating in insurrection or rebellion. Donald Trump has not been charged under that statute, let alone convicted under that law. And what they're trying to do is to set up local authorities, an attorney general, a secretary of state, somebody, on a state-by-state basis to rule that Donald Trump is an insurrectionist and therefore can't go on the ballot in their state. It is completely nuts. And I think the best explanation, James, is that the Democrats are trying to embroil Donald Trump in as many legal proceedings as possible between now and the election so that he can't be on the campaign trail. He can't be paying any attention to the election. He's constantly tied up in various legal battles.
John Hinderaker, they are going to destroy the Constitution in order to save it. Thank you so much. And read John's stuff on the Powerline blog.